to be with you. Unity is a movement that invites us to come home to ourselves, to come home to that understanding, that knowing that's deep within us, that we are created in the image and the likeness of God, that everything that God is, we are. Unity invites us to come home to that place that's in harmony with that knowledge of who we are. When we live from that place, we live in our divine identity, and life feels like a miracle. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore defines miracle like this: a demonstration of divine law. Now, divine law is something that's immutable. It's not changeable whether we believe in it or not. Divine law is still in action. Divine law which supersedes the common understanding of natural law. So it's not that it goes against natural law. When we apply those principles, when we live in the law, then it appears that miracles happen. Now, unity was built on a foundation of prayer and healing. And when we learn to live in prayer, when we learn to apply those principles, healing occurs within us because we come into harmony with that which created us. Myrtle Fillmore learned how to do that early on. She began to learn how to apply affirmation. She began to learn how to use what we call denials in unity. She began to apply principle. Myrtle Fillmore was diagnosed with tuberculosis early on in her life. And she was told that she was going to be a semi-invalid for the rest of her life. Now imagine what that would be like to a young woman. She'd taught school. She'd met this man that she adored. And she was being told, you're going to be a semi-invalid for the rest of your life. And she decided to practice the principles of Jesus. Jesus in unity is a way shower. Jesus shows us that when we live as Jesus lived, then we can live in our oneness with God. We can live in that full capacity of our divinity. And Myrtle Fillmore began to do that. She began to apply those principles. Now, Jesus was a teacher and a healer in ancient Palestine. The Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, are all very similar to each other, which is why they're called the Synoptic Gospels. There are 13 accounts of healing in the Synoptic Gospels. And then John is another gospel. It's called the Cosmic Gospel quite often. And there are other accounts of healing there. But 13 accounts of healing in these three Gospels. Sometimes Jesus would have somebody take an action. Jesus was walking along close to a synagogue one day, and there was a man standing there. And he said, "Would you heal my withered hand?" And Jesus looked at him and he said, "Stretch out your hand." And as soon as the man stretched his hand out, the hand was restored to perfection. Now, Myrtle Fillmore used those same principles to heal her life. She found a way to stretch her metaphorical hand out. There are other times with Jesus that he asked somebody to do something, or times where he actually applied touch. Like he would come up to somebody when they asked for healing, and he would touch them. He would combine his consciousness of his oneness with God with another person in the midst of that touch. Here's an instance. A leper came to him. The him in this case is Jesus. A leper came to him, and he's kneeling in front of him, a position of respect. "If you choose, you can make me clean. If you choose, you can make me clean." And the writer of the Gospel of Mark says that Jesus, his heart was touched. He was moved to pity. And he said to him, "I do choose. I do choose." And immediately the leprosy left the man. Can you imagine what it's like for that man to come and say to Jesus, "If you choose, you could heal me"? Can you imagine the excitement when he saw Jesus? Can you imagine what he felt? Because basically what he was saying to Jesus when he said, if you choose, he was saying, hey, I know who you are. I see you. Because if the man could not have seen Jesus, he would not have known to make the request. Look around. Look at the image and likeness of God that is sitting beside you right now. And see them. Take a moment. Look around and see the image and likeness of God. And say to somebody near you, I see you. I see you. I see your divine perfection. I see your wholeness. I see the wonders of God that you have, that you are. The leper chose to ask for healing. Jesus chose to give the healing. And Myrtle Fillmore chose to use those very same principles to engage in her own healing. Here's what she did. It took her 2 years, 2 hours a day. She went to a talk by a man named Dr. E.B. Weeks. She and Mr. Fillmore, Charles Fillmore, went to this talk in Kansas City one night. And she was sitting in this talk, and what she heard from Dr. E.B. Weeks was this statement: you are a child of God, therefore you do not inherit weakness. I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit weakness. Let's say that together. I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit weakness. There's no weakness in God. There's no sickness in God. And when we live in that divine harmony with God, we live our divine perfection. We live our divine health. The cool thing was Myrtle Fillmore heard truth in that statement. Do you remember ever going to someplace and all of a sudden you hear something that just resounds with truth and you go, yes, that's it. For me, I feel this sort of zing in my body. It's like, yes, that's it. So Myrtle Fillmore heard the, yes, that's it. I'm going to do that. And she went home and she began to practice that. She began to apologize to every organ of her body. She began to ask forgiveness for every organ in her body. And she began to bless every organ of her body. Just as the leopard asked for healing. Just as Jesus chose to do healing, Myrtle Fillmore called those same principles forth in her life. And she called forth healing. There's a healing in this house, this spiritual community today. It's here for you. It's here for me. It's here for all of us. In another story, Mr. Fillmore says, all healing is based on mental cleansing. When the mind is free from error thinking, harmony in the body happens. Harmony ensues. Error thinking is any time that we think that we are separate from God. For we are created in the image and likeness of God. We are that which created us. We are that which is breathing us. So there is no time in our life that we could ever be separate from God. But in our minds, we can play the game. We can have the illusion that we are. And when that happens, then oftentimes we feel sad, we feel lonely, we feel sick. But we can come back with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our choices, just like the beggar chose, just like Jesus chose, just like Myrtle Fillmore chose. We can choose to live in our divine identity. Now, Jesus was in Jerusalem. He was at the Sheep's Gate in Jerusalem. And at the Sheep's Gate is this very special pool. And periodically that pool would agitate so the water would ripple. Earlier in the Bible it says an angel, which would be a messenger from God. So that pool activates. And Jesus was walking by, and there he saw this man who'd been there for 38 years, sitting on his mat. And Jesus looked at him, and he said to him, because he knew that he had been there a long time, do you want to be healed? He asked the question, do you want to be healed? Well, listen to the man's answer. He says to Jesus, sir, I have no one to put me in the pool of water. No one can put me in the pool of water. And then he goes on to say, while I'm making my way down the steps, someone else gets there first. So no one will do it for me, and I can't do it either. And Jesus looks at the man. Remember, he's already asked the question, do you want to be well? He looks at the man, and he says to him, get up, take your mat, and walk. And that's exactly what the man did. He picked up his mat, and he walked. Well, metaphysically, in this church, we interpret the Bible metaphysically. Metaphysically, every place is here. Every time is now. We are every character. So we're both Jesus and we're the man at the same time. So here the man and Jesus are in Jerusalem. Metaphysically, Jerusalem means the dwelling place of peace. We are in peace. That man who was laying on his mat was in a place of peace, the very dwelling place of peace for the Israelites. And all he experienced was frustration. Have you ever been in a place where there's peace and love and joy are all around you, and you experience frustration? I can say I have been there. I haven't been able to allow the peace in. The pool that the man was trying to get to is that realization in consciousness that our life is being constantly purified, healed, and made new by the activity of the mind. That's that power of choice. The choice that the leper made, the choice that Jesus made, the choice that Myrtle Fillmore made. We have the same capacity to make that choice, to bring forth healing, to live in peace, to live in perfect harmony, to live in perfect health, to live in joy. We have that opportunity day by day. Myrtle Fillmore did it. We can do it too. What's happening here is there's a shift in consciousness. As soon as Jesus asked the man to stretch out his hand, there was a shift in consciousness. As soon as Jesus touched the man, there was a shift in consciousness. As soon as Myrtle Fillmore said, yes, I'm going home. I'm going to do this affirmation. I'm going to bless my body for it as long as it takes. Now, we live in a society where 2 years often feels like a very long time. But she had the commitment, the will, the strength to continue every day for approximately 2 hours, and healing happened. Tuberculosis was complete for her. It was gone. She was living in her divine identity, understanding her oneness with God. This is her affirmation. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. Would you say that with me? I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. And I'm going to invite you to think about something in your life that you would seek healing for. Something in your life that you feel like is calling you, knocking on the door of your consciousness, of your awareness, inviting healing. And hold that in your mind for just a moment. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Hold that idea of healing in your mind. And as you're holding that, let's say this affirmation again. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. And now I'm going to ask you to say that one more time. And this time I'm going to ask you, as you say that, allow these words to reverberate through your body. Allow your body to feel the vibration of these words. Together, I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. Now let's do the Myrtle Fillmore thing. Hold that thing that you would like healing for in your consciousness for a moment. And I'm going to invite you to reach up and touch your head. Just reach up and touch your head. Now what Myrtle Fillmore did was she asked for an apology, she asked forgiveness, and she asked for a blessing. But right now, let's just ask for the blessing. I bless my head. I bless my brain. I bless my mind. I bless my thoughts, that they may be in alignment with my true nature, my wholeness. And then gently move your hands down to your eyes. I bless my eyes. I bless all that they can see. I bless the clarity with which I see myself, the clarity that I see in others. I bless that I see myself in the image and the likeness of God. I see my wholeness and I see the wholeness of others. And then move your hands down to your lips, your mouth. I bless my lips, my teeth, my tongue. I bless the part of my body that allows me to eat, to take in nourishment. And then move your hands down to your throat. This is where our thyroid is. This is where our metabolism is. I bless my throat. I bless my ability to use my larynx to speak words. And I choose words of truth. I choose words that remind me that I am a beloved expression of God. I choose words of love for myself and for others because we know that with the power of the spoken word, with our experience, our feelings and our thoughts, we manifest. And then bring your hands down to your heart. Feel the love that radiates forth from your heart. That love that you are because you are whole, complete, and perfect. God is love and we are love. And let anything that feels unlike love fall away. I bless my heart and I radiate love with every breath that I take. And bless your belly, your intestines and your liver, your spleen, and all those organs that assist you in metabolizing food, in clearing and cleansing of the body. And then bring your hands down to your lap. And bless your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet. This is the part of the body that carries you forward. Bless that part that takes you into the next step of wholeness for yourself, knowing that you are one with God. If you're willing to make that choice, you can live from that oneness, from that divine identity. And let's take those thoughts into a time of meditation. We come together in this time of meditation in our wholeness, our knowing that we live and we move and we have our experience, our very beingness in God, that we cannot but express God. How much are we willing to express? And knowing that God lives and moves and has expression as us. So we become the eyes and the hands and the hearts of God. When we look at each other, we have the capacity to express love. When we touch each other, we have the capacity to radiate forth healing through that touch. For we are one. And we are love. And hold that thought of love in your consciousness for yourself, for each other, and for the planet.
As we are willing, there is a healing in the house of our consciousness. As we are willing, there is a healing in the house of our body. As as we are willing, there is a healing in our community. And as we are willing, there is a healing in our world. A healing that opens our minds and our hearts and our eyes and our mouths to the peace that has been here all along. The freedom to move and the freedom to be. We are all beloved expressions of God, and therefore we do not inherit sickness. We are sacred healing light, and we are sacred love. Let us now sing together, "You are sacred love."